Okay, so your 1.1 to 1.3 quiz is Wednesday. Guys, it's the half day. I understand that. You'll have at least 30 to 35 minutes, depending on how quickly we can get in here and get settled. But you're only going to have 5 questions. So looking through this review, go ahead and star what I'm about to star. You absolutely will have 1 question like this first one. All right, we're going to come back and do 1 of each. You absolutely will have 1 question, like 5 through 7. You absolutely will have 1 question from 8 through 11. All right, and then I'll talk about the next page once we get there. But you will have, of the 5 questions, here's an example of 3 of them, okay? The formulas that are at the top, you need to know those. The distance formula, you subtract the x's, square it, subtract the y's, square it, add that together, take the square root, but you have to know that formula. Midpoint, we add our x's and our y's together, divide by 2. You need to add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. You have to write your midpoint as an ordered pair. So it's the x part, comma, the y part, and you have parentheses on it. All right, we need to know the slope formula. Y is on top, x is on the bottom. The next thing says the equation of a circle. Somebody said, what's the equation of an O? That's not what it says. The equation of a circle. Remember where our H and K is our center. R is your radius. And then you're going to be asked to write equations of lines in slope-intercept form. So you can start off in point slope and work to y equals mx plus b, or you can just start in y equals mx plus b, whichever is best for you guys. And then when we talk about parallel and perpendicular lines, remember parallel lines have the same slope and perpendicular lines have opposite signs and reciprocal slopes. So I'm going to go over 1 question from each section, and I promise you I will upload this video in just a minute. First question, let's just do number 1 together. Again, I'm going to show you how I think you guys should work through working these out. If you have 2 points that are next to each other, I would rewrite them and put them on top of each other. You're less likely to make silly mistakes of putting x's with x's and y's with y's, that sort of thing, if you write them on top of each other. So I have 2, 0 and negative 5, 12. Make sure that you copy the points correctly and all that good stuff. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the distance. So I'm going to write d equals, I'm going to write my formula out. This is you guys showing me your work. So x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. I'm going to take the square root once I add them together. Does it matter which x I put first? No, because at the end, we're squaring the value, so we're always going to have a positive number. So my 2 x's are 2 and negative 5. You can write 2 minus negative 5, or you can say negative 5 minus 2, however you guys would like to do it. I'm just going to say negative 2 minus 5 squared plus, and then I have 12 minus 0 squared. Questions? All right, now we're just going to simplify. If I have negative 5 minus 2, that gives me negative 7 squared plus 12 minus 0 is 12 squared. What is negative 7 squared? 49, good. And then what's 12 squared? 144. Guys, if you don't know that, over here, write 12 times 12 and multiply it out. No biggie. If I'm going to add 49 and 144, if you can't do that in your head, write down 144 and 49. Add it together. What do I get when I add 144 and 49? The square root of 193. Before I circle my answer, and I'm so proud of myself that I got the answer correct, what do I have to make sure of? Make sure there's no perfect squares inside, which with 193 there's not. Somebody first period said, well, how do you know? Well, think about it. The first prime number we come to is 2. 2 only goes into a number if it ends in an even digit, so 193 doesn't work. Try 3. How do we know if 3 goes into it? Add up the digits. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 3 is 13. Does 3 go into 13? No. So now we try 5. Well, it doesn't end with a 0 or a 5. The next one you could try is 7. After about that, I'd say, all right, there's no more. We're good to go. So I'm going to say right here that my distance is the square root of 193. When you get your answer here, guys, it's always going to be positive. If you have a negative underneath there, you did something wrong. So make sure you check that. Secondly, to find our midpoint, we're going to take those same 2 points. And I'm going to take my x values, add them together, divide by 2. And I'm going to take my y values and add them together, divide by 2. So my x's were negative 5 and 2, so negative 5 plus 2, comma, 12 plus 0 divided by 2. What is negative 5 plus 2? Okay, so negative 3 over 2, just leave it. And then what's 12 plus 0? 12 divided by 2 is 6. So your midpoint is negative 3/2, comma, 6. Needs to be written in parentheses, separated by a comma. You can leave your answer as that improper fraction. If you can simplify it, like if it's 10 over 6 and simplify to, what would that simplify to? 10 over 6. 5 over 3, yeah, something like that, that's fine. But if you have an improper fraction at like negative 3 over 2, just leave it. But that is the first question on every single version of your quiz. It's going to say, all right, find the distance and midpoint. Here we go. Questions. Next one. Each version of your quiz will have a question like this. It says, find the equation of the circle with the given endpoints, all right? Remember, I told you, if you don't have a picture, go ahead and draw one. Let's do number 5. Here is my circle, and these are the endpoints of the diameter. So I'm just going to put 2, negative 5 here, and I'm going to put negative 6, 9 here. In order to write the equation of a circle, my equation of the circle looks like this. It's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared, where h and k are my center, remember, and r is the radius. Again, you guys need to know that. Looking at this, I cannot tell you what the equation of the circle is, but I have enough information to find it. What does the diameter do to a circle? It cuts it in what? Half. It goes through the what? That's the center, the midpoint. So given those 2 points, can I find out what the midpoint or the center of that circle is? Yeah, what formula would I use? The midpoint. I'm going to take my x's and add them up and divide by 2. And then I'm going to take my y's and add them up and divide by 2. So I have 2 plus negative 6 divided by 2. And then I have negative 5 plus 9 divided by 2. Do you guys agree with me? Okay, what's 2 plus negative 6? Negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Then I have negative 5 plus 9 is what? Positive 4. 4 divided by 2 is... So there's my center. My center, my h and my k is negative 2, comma 2. Everybody agree with me? Mm-hmm. So now I have enough information to find the radius. There's actually 2 ways you can find the radius. What's one of the ways? Radius is what? Distance formula. Good. So I would find the distance between what? The midpoint and one of the points, one of the endpoints. What's another way I could do it without using the midpoint? What about if I found the distance from here to here? Could I do that? What would I have to do with once I found that distance? Divided by 2. I personally would just take the midpoint, which is negative 2, 2, and I'd find the distance from the middle to one of the endpoints. I am going to use the points negative 2, 2, which is my midpoint, and I'm going to use 2, negative 5. Simply because 2 and negative 5 are smaller than negative 6 and 9 for computation purposes. All right, so the distance now between these 2 points. My 2 x's, I'm going to say negative 2 minus 2 squared plus 2 minus negative 5 squared. What's negative 2 minus 2? So I have negative 4 squared plus, what's 2 minus a negative 5? 7. That's okay. So negative 4 squared is 16, plus 7 squared is 49, which gives me the square root of 65. So my center is right here, and my radius is the square root of 65. Now, have I written the equation of my circle yet? No. The equation of my circle is x minus h. What's the h part of my center? Negative 2. So minus a negative gives me plus 2 squared. And then I have plus y minus, what's the k part? Positive 2. Good. So 2 equals my radius, which is the square root of 65, and I have to square it. What happens when you square a square root? It cancels out. So your equation should read x plus 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 65. There's a lot to do in that problem, but all it is using your distance formula and your midpoint formula. You just got to find the midpoint and then find the distance from the midpoint to one of your endpoints on the circle. And then write your equation of your circle. All right, another question on your quiz will be just like this, and it'll say identify the center and the radius of the following. Let's do 8 and 11 together. We'll get 2 of these done. 8 says x minus 3 squared plus y squared equals 16. And then 11 says x plus 1 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 36. Not much work to do here, guys. What is the center of the circle for 8? 3, 0. How did Hannah get that? How come it's not negative 3? It's opposite. Good. And where did you get 0 from? There's nothing being added or subtracted. Good. And then what is my radius? 4. Why isn't it plus or minus 4? Because it's distance, and you don't measure distance in negatives. So we just take the square root of that number, and you get your answer. What about 11? What's the center for 11? The center is negative 1, negative 2. Remember, we flip our signs. And then what's my radius? 6. Good. What would happen if you had an equation, let's just make up another one that says x plus 12 squared plus y squared equals 8. What's my center here? Negative 12 what? 0. Okay. What's my radius? Do you guys agree with me that the radius is the square root of 8? Yeah? Is that simplified? No. I would have to break this down, and the square root of 8 is the same as 4 times 2, right? So which one's a perfect square? 4. So the square root, perfect square comes out. So my radius here would be 2 root 2. Make sure you guys pay attention to that. You always want to make sure that you simplify completely. Questions? All right, this page. If you notice, there's a lot going on this page. You will have a question that is similar to this section, 16 to 18. You won't have any that look exactly like 12 and 13 or 14 and 15. But this is good practice. If I look at this first section, 12 and 13, and I ask you to tell me a line that is parallel, what am I telling you when I say I want something parallel? What am I telling you about the slope? Same. Got to be the same. So you have to determine what the slope is, and then you have to write your equation of a line through the point that's given. So in number 12, what's my slope? Negative 1 over 3. In number 13, can I just look at that and tell you what the slope is? What would I have to do? You got to get it into y equals mx plus b. You got to move 4x over, divide by 5, that sort of thing. When I look at 14 to 15, I want a line that is perpendicular. What does that mean? Opposite sign, reciprocal is your slope. So it's going to be the opposite reciprocal. So you'll have a question. Every version will have a question similar to 16, 17, 18. I'm not going to ask you for both the parallel and perpendicular. It'll be one or the other. But I just wanted to show you guys. So we'll do 16, and we'll do both the parallel line and the perpendicular. What do you guys notice about 16, 17, and 18? The ordered pair that I gave you to write the line through. They're all fractions. What do you think you're probably going to have on your quiz? A fraction. Okay, so let's do 16 together. It says, write the equation line that passes through the given point. How do you know what the slope is? What slope do they want me to use? How do I figure that out? We don't have a slope, but do we have 2 points? Do I have an A and a B? Can I figure out what the slope is that they're talking about? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the 2 points that are given, we're going to find the slope. So my slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Everybody agree? Yeah. Okay, so again, I'm going to write the points on top of each other just so I don't make any silly mistakes. So -3, 2, and then I have 1, 4. So my y, so I'm going to say 4 minus 2. If I write 4 minus 2 on the top, if I start with 4, what do I have to start with on the bottom? 1. Good. So 1 minus -3. Really important that you guys pay attention to your signs. Because if you miss a sign here, the entire problem gets messed up. What is 4 minus 2? 2. What's 1 minus a -3? 4. So I came out here that the slope that we're talking about is 1/2. Do you guys agree with me on that? Okay, so now we're going to write 2 equations. We're going to write an equation of a line through the point 1/3, -5. That's parallel, and that's perpendicular. So over here, all right, we're going to do both of them. If I'm going to write the parallel line, what slope do I use? 1/2. Very good. And we're going through the point 1/3, -5, right? Is that what I told you? Yeah. So we'll do that in a second here. But over here, we're also going to find the perpendicular line. What is the perpendicular slope? Opposite, flip it, and sign. So it would be -2/1, or you could just say -2. Still going through the point 1/3, -5. Do you guys have any questions? You're going to have to do this on your quiz where you're going to have 2 points. You got to find the slope. Then you have to determine if you use that same slope or if you use the opposite reciprocal, and then you have to write the equation of the line through the point. Now, here's where I told you, you guys can use your point slope form, or you can use y equals mx plus b, whatever you are more comfortable with, but your answer needs to be in y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to go with point slope form. I'm going to say y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is my x, and this is my y. So I have y minus a -5 equals 1/2 times x minus 1/3. Does anybody have any questions about where I got any of that information from? All right, well, if we simplify here, what's minus a negative? So y plus 5 equals, what do I do with this 1/2? You distribute it, you multiply. So 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. What's 1/2 times -1/3? 1/6. Good. You multiply numerators, multiply denominators. We've got our negative sign. And I have one last step. I have to isolate y. So I'm going to what? I'm going to subtract 5. Now, guys, look, when I do this, I'm subtracting. I'm going to put 5 over here because it's 5/1. When you are subtracting or adding fractions, you have to have a common what? Denominator. What is a common denominator that I'm going to use if I have -1/6 minus 5/1? 6, okay? So I'm going to change 5/1 to sixths. How many sixths are in 5/1? 36. Okay. I multiply the bottom by 6, right? 1 times 6 is 6. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So 5 times 6 is 30. So if I have a -1 and a -30, that gives me what? -31/6. That is my y-intercept. Questions? All right, now we're going to do the exact same thing, guys, but now I want the line that is perpendicular to. So instead of taking the slope of positive 1 over 2, the perpendicular would be the reciprocal. You flip it over, and you change the signs. So again, I'm going to use point slope. If you want to use y equals mx plus b, that's fine, because that's where we want our answer to be. But sometimes I think some of us, it's just a little easier to do this. So here's my x, here's my y. So y minus a negative 5 is same as plus, correct? The slope I'm using is negative 2. You can put over 1 if you want to. I'm just going to leave as negative 2. And then I have x minus 1/3. All right, what do I do? First thing I do. I'm going to distribute that negative 2 first. Yep, we want to distribute. So I have y plus 5 equals negative 2x. A negative times a negative is a positive. And 2 over 1 times 1 over 3 is 2 over 3. Good. And then what's the last thing I do? I'm going to move that 5. I'm going to subtract 5 over 1. So I subtract, and I'm going to put 5 over 1 here, because I don't want 5 over 1. What do I want? I want thirds, right? We've got to have a common denominator. So what's a common denominator between 1 and 3? It would be 3. So 1 times 3 is, sure. 1 times 3 is 3. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So 5 times 3 gives me negative 15. Good. So y equals, I have negative 2x. If I have a positive 2 and a negative 13, what does that give me? Did I say the answer? I'm sorry. If I have a positive 2 and a negative 15, what does that give me? Negative 13 over 3. You guys looked at me like, wait, what? Sorry. My brain's going faster than my mouth. So look at these two lines. Compare them. How can you look at those two lines and tell me, oh, those are perpendicular of each other?
The slope.
The slope. This slope right here is positive 1/2. This is negative 2 over 1. They are opposite reciprocals. What is the original slope that we started with? 1/2. So you should be able to compare and say, oh, look, this is a parallel line, say the same slope. This is the perpendicular one because it's opposite reciprocal. Now on your quiz, you're not going to do both. It'll give you this information and ask you for either the parallel line or the perpendicular one, but not both. 1, midpoint distance. 1 given two endpoints on a circle, endpoint is the diameter, I should say. Write the equation. 1 given the equation of a circle, tell me the center and the radius. 1 given some information about a line, write the equation that's parallel perpendicular. Okay, that's 4 of your 5. You guys with me? Let's do one more. You're going to have an intercept question where you have to find the x and the y. Look how I told you your answer has to be written as a what? As an ordered pair. It's got to be a point. Don't just tell me x equals. Don't just leave it as a random number. I want an ordered pair. So let's do 19 together. All right, it doesn't matter what you start with, whether you find the x-intercept first or the y. I'm going to find the y-intercept first. I'm going to plug in 0 for x and see what I get, okay? So I'm going to say 3 times 0 squared. Wait, let me rewrite this for a sec. Y equals 3 times 0 squared minus 6 times 0 minus 105. All right, what is 0 squared times 3? 0. What's negative 6 times 0? 0. What does y equal, guys? Negative 105. You would write your answer as 0, comma, negative 105. Write your intercepts as ordered pairs. If you're finding the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y. If you're finding the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. All right? So now I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So 3x squared minus 6x minus 105, and I'm plugging in 0 for y. What do we do here? Hold on one sec. You guys, if I have a squared and an x, we got a factor. Yep. Now, some of you right away go, okay, big numbers. 3 times negative 105. But Chloe just said something. Chloe said, wait, can't you what, Chloe? Divide everything by 3. Guys, you always look for what first? GCF. It'll make your life easier. If I divide everything by 3, some people are going like, wait, how did you know you could divide by 3? Well, does 3 go into 3? Yes. Does 3 go into 6? Does 3 go into 105? Well, not so sure. Add up the digits. What's 1 plus 0 plus 5? 6. Does 3 go into 6? That means 3 will go into 105. So bring your 3 out in front, and you're left with x squared minus 6 divided by 3 is 2x. And then 105 divided by 3 is, yep, good. Now your factoring is a lot easier. So I have 3 still on the outside. What are the factors of negative 35 that will multiply to give me negative 35, but add to give me a negative 2? 5 and 7. What kind of 5, what kind of 7?
Negative 7, positive 5.
Yes, negative 7, positive 5. Remember, you want a negative 35 when you multiply. That means one has to be positive, one negative. But you want a negative when you combine. So negative 7 plus 5 will give me negative 2. Now I have one more step. What do I have to do with each piece to find my intercept?
5, 3. Or do we set it to 0?
Yep, set everything equal to 0. So 3 equals 0. X minus 7 equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. Guys, does 3 ever equal 0? No. So then you can just cross this out. If it said 3x equals 0, then yes, there is a solution at 0. But that does not have an x with it. So that is just null and void. 0 is not an answer here. So when I add 7 to both sides, I get x equals positive 7, and I subtract 5 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 5. How do I write my x-intercepts? My x-intercepts would be at 7, 0, and negative 5, 0. There's 2 of them. How did I know from the very beginning that there was going to be 2 of them? The highest exponent is 2. Guys, this is not the same thing as 7, 0 and negative 5, 0. That is the point 7, negative 5. I understand what you're trying to tell me, that those are both the intercepts, but that's not the way that you write it. That means something totally different. So you need to have 7, 0, negative 5, 0. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is everything that is on your quiz. It is in your best interest to work on these problems. I'm going to go over some more of them with you tomorrow. So work now, see what questions you have, so you can either ask me now or you can come into class and say, hey, I got stuck on this one. But your quiz is when? Wednesday. Okay, good.